to present initial scientific findings surrounding the object now known as the Buga sphere, a mysterious flying sphere recovered in the town of Buga, Colombia.
A dark mystery hangs in the air. The world has always wondered if strange objects seen in the sky are real or just mistakes of the human eye. For decades, people reported sightings of metallic spheres floating silently above fields, oceans, and cities. But most of these claims were dismissed as lies, jokes, or errors. Then, deep in Colombia, in the city of Buga, strange round objects began to appear. They were small, silver, and unshakable. They seemed to move with purpose, following people, vehicles, and even scientists. Soon the media gave them a name, the Buga sphere. At first, many thought it was nothing more than a myth. But in time, military records, declassified documents, and testimonies from respected scientists suggested something shocking. These spheres were not only real but possibly probes sent by something far beyond Earth. And if that was true, the terrifying question followed: who sent them and why? The first time anyone dared to speak publicly about the Buga sphere was in the late 1970s. Locals described a metallic ball about the size of a football gliding low to the ground. Some said it rolled without touching the earth. Others swore it hovered in midair. No engine, no wings, no noise. Just silent movement, as if it had a mind of its own. People who got too close claimed it reacted, speeding away with impossible force. When the stories spread, scientists traveled to Buga to see for themselves. Some returned shaken, refusing to give interviews. Others described strange electromagnetic readings and instruments that failed whenever the sphere appeared. What disturbed them most was the intelligence behind the movements. The object seemed to study those who studied it. It was not random. It was watching. Military units stationed nearby began secret investigations. Records later revealed orders not to shoot at the object under any circumstances. The official explanation was simple: do not provoke what you do not understand. The Buga sphere was fast, unpredictable, and possibly indestructible. Soldiers whispered that bullets bounced off as if striking steel, while others insisted the projectiles were absorbed into its surface like stones into water. Years later, researchers compared the Buga sphere with reports from other countries. Astonishingly, almost identical probes had been seen in Brazil, Spain, and even the United States. Metallic balls, perfectly smooth, immune to damage, and always appearing in quiet, rural areas. Some scientists proposed they were drones from an unknown civilization designed to study Earth discreetly. But if they were simply scouts, why reveal themselves at all? Theories multiplied. Were they mapping resources, recording human behavior, testing responses from military forces? Or were they seeds of something far larger, preparing for an arrival we could not stop? Whatever the truth, witnesses agreed on one thing: once you saw the sphere, you never forgot it. Its presence filled the air with an invisible weight, as though reality itself bent around it. Dogs barked, birds scattered, and people froze in fear. The silence that followed was unnatural, like the pause before a storm. Locals of Buga remember the fear most of all. Families whispered of nights when the strange metallic sphere appeared over their rooftops. It glowed faintly under the moonlight, a perfect polished ball without markings. Children cried as animals panicked, their instincts screaming that something unnatural had entered their world. Many villagers locked themselves inside, convinced that looking directly at it would bring bad luck or even death. The sphere seemed alive. It did not drift like a balloon, nor fly like a bird. Instead, it hovered with purpose, moving in slow circles before vanishing in sudden bursts of speed. Witnesses said it could disappear into the night sky in a blink, only to reappear silently behind them. This behavior terrified the people. They began to believe it was not a machine at all, but a creature from the stars, sent to watch humanity. The first serious report came when a farmer claimed the sphere followed his truck for nearly 10 kilometers. No matter how fast he drove, the object kept pace. At one point, it moved so close he felt his radio static explode, filling the cabin with shrieks of broken signals. Then, without warning, the truck engine died. The vehicle coasted to a stop in silence, headlights dimming. He sat frozen in terror as the metallic ball hovered a few meters away, humming softly. Moments later, the engine roared back to life on its own, and the sphere darted away into the sky. The farmer swore he would never return to that road again. Soon, scientists arrived with equipment to record the anomaly. But what they found was more disturbing than they imagined. Compass needles spun wildly. Batteries drained within minutes. Even film reels developed strange marks, as if the images themselves were corrupted by the sphere's presence. One physicist said in an interview that it felt like the laws of nature shifted around the object, as though it bent reality to protect itself. He never returned to Buga after that week. The Colombian military entered quietly. Trucks rolled in at night, soldiers posted at corners, their orders clear: observe but do not engage. They set up hidden cameras, radar dishes, and even attempted to trap the sphere with nets and barriers. Every attempt failed. The object slipped away before they could surround it, as if it anticipated every move. Soldiers began to whisper that it was intelligent. Not just a drone, but something that could think. Whispers spread across the town. Some said the sphere was harmless, only watching. Others believed it marked the homes it visited, preparing them for an unknown fate. People spoke of dreams filled with metallic landscapes and endless skies, as if the object was reaching into their minds. Priests warned their congregations not to give in to fear, but even inside churches, eyes drifted nervously toward the windows at night. Then came the reports from abroad. Newspapers in Spain wrote about strange spheres floating near coastal villages. Brazilian fishermen claimed they were chased across the water by glowing orbs. In the American Southwest, ranchers spoke of metallic probes that rolled silently across desert fields before vanishing into the night. The similarities were impossible to ignore. These were not local myths. This was a global phenomenon. Scientists tried to unite the data. They noticed one pattern: the spheres always appeared in places of quiet isolation, far from major cities. They seemed drawn to areas where humanity's guard was down. No one knew why. Some proposed they were searching for resources beneath the ground. Others thought they were recording how humans reacted when faced with the unknown. The most frightening theory suggested they were scouts, seeds of something larger waiting to come. In time, the Buga sphere became more than a mystery. It became a symbol of dread. People avoided discussing it in public, afraid that even speaking its name might draw its attention. And yet, each year, more sightings were reported. Each year, more people swore that the metallic eye in the sky had followed them, watched them, studied them. The question no one could answer was the most important one of all. If these spheres truly were alien probes, then who, or what, sent them? The third wave of encounters with the Buga sphere turned the mystery into something darker. What had once been strange sightings and eerie silences soon became stories of direct interference with human life. Families who lived near the outskirts of Buga claimed the sphere did not just follow them. It entered their homes. One man awoke in the middle of the night to a pale glow washing across his bedroom walls. At first, he thought it was a flashlight, but when he pulled back the curtain, he froze. The metallic ball was hovering just outside the window, motionless like a cold, unblinking eye. He swore later that he could feel his thoughts racing against his will, as if something inside the object was probing his mind. Terrified, he prayed aloud. When he opened his eyes again, the sphere was gone, leaving no trace except for a dead wristwatch on his bedside table. Others reported the same detail. Clocks and watches stopped when the sphere appeared. Radios crackled. Televisions hissed with static. Even street lamps dimmed, as if the object drained the life from electricity. Scientists began to suspect that the sphere gave off an electromagnetic field powerful enough to disrupt technology. But some villagers said the effect was not limited to machines. They believed it could disrupt human thoughts as well. A young woman told her priest that whenever the sphere passed over her house, she would feel overwhelming dread. Sometimes she woke up hours later, unable to remember what had happened. Her neighbors confirmed they saw the metallic orb near her home on several occasions. Doctors examined her but found no illness, no physical reason for her sudden memory gaps. Rumors spread that the sphere could erase pieces of a person's life. By this point, researchers from other countries had joined the investigation. American scientists arrived quietly, pretending to be journalists. They carried advanced cameras and instruments, but they rarely spoke to the locals. It was later revealed through leaked documents that the United States had already tracked similar spheres in their own airspace. Their visit to Colombia was not curiosity, it was confirmation. The Colombian government grew silent. Officials denied everything, yet villagers noticed military trucks guarding the roads at night. Helicopters circled over the fields, but the sphere never appeared when officials were present. It seemed to know when it was being hunted. Witnesses joked bitterly that it had more intelligence than the soldiers sent to catch it. The fear escalated when a farmer's dog was found dead near a site where the sphere had been seen the night before. There were no wounds, no blood, only the animal's body lying stiff, as though frozen by something invisible. The veterinarian could not explain the death. Villagers took it as a warning. If the sphere could kill animals without touching them, it could just as easily turn on humans. Soon after, strange patterns appeared in the fields near Buga. Grass bent into circles without being cut. Soil was scorched in perfect rings. To many it looked like signs, messages written on the earth. Scientists examined the circles and claimed they were caused by heat, but no machine known to man could have left such marks without fire or ash. Some wondered if the sphere had landed briefly, touching the earth before vanishing again into the skies. By the early 1980s, international newspapers began to take notice. Stories of the Buga sphere spread beyond Colombia, sparking debate among skeptics and believers. Skeptics called it hysteria fueled by folklore. Believers argued the evidence was overwhelming: eyewitness accounts, damaged electronics, and physical marks on the ground. Even those who did not believe were unsettled by how many respectable people swore the phenomenon was real. Then came the most chilling detail of all. A retired colonel admitted anonymously to a journalist that the military had captured photographs of the sphere up close. He described it as flawless metal, smooth and seamless, with no bolts or openings. It reflected no sunlight, as though it absorbed light into itself. When asked why the photographs were not released, the colonel gave a simple answer: because the world is not ready. The mystery of the Buga sphere was no longer just a local legend. It had become part of a larger, global puzzle. Reports of similar spheres began to connect across continents, across decades. It was as though Earth was surrounded by watchers. Countless eyes of unknown origin, always present but never speaking. The fear was not just that the spheres were real. The fear was what they were waiting for. As the years passed, the story of the Buga sphere moved from whispered warnings in small Colombian villages to classified files in government archives around the world. Each new sighting added a fresh layer of unease. People began to notice that the spheres did not simply appear at random. They arrived at specific times, in specific places, almost as if they were following a plan. One of the most chilling events happened in 1985. A group of students was returning home from a late night gathering when they saw a sphere hovering above the road. They stopped their bicycles, staring in disbelief. The metallic orb floated silently a few meters above them, glowing faintly as if lit from within. Without warning, it dropped lower until it was almost at eye level. The air grew heavy. The students reported feeling a deep vibration in their bones, like standing beside a giant machine. Then, in an instant, the sphere shot into the night sky and vanished, leaving them shaking and unable to speak. For months, every one of them suffered nightmares of being watched. Scientists who analyzed these encounters realized something unsettling. The spheres were not just observing, they were interacting. They displayed behavior that suggested awareness of human presence. Some even responded to movement, as though curious about those who approached. The idea that they were automated machines seemed less convincing with every passing year. Many began to whisper the unthinkable. What if the spheres were alive? Governments tried to contain the panic. Official statements dismissed the sightings as weather balloons, drones, or hoaxes. But behind closed doors, intelligence agencies scrambled to gather data. Documents later leaked showed that multiple countries had reported the same object within hours of each other. The spheres could cross entire continents in a single night. No human technology could achieve such speed and stealth in the 1980s. Meanwhile, villagers near Buga grew used to living under the silent shadow of the phenomenon. Some left the area completely, unwilling to raise families where strange lights appeared without warning. Others stayed, learning to live with the fear. They closed their windows at night, kept candles ready for sudden power outages, and avoided traveling alone after dark. The community changed, shaped forever by the presence of something they could not understand or stop. The most disturbing reports were those involving physical effects on the human body. Witnesses spoke of sudden burns that appeared without fire. Others described temporary blindness after looking directly at the glowing surface. A few even reported faint scars shaped like thin lines across their skin, as if etched by invisible tools. Doctors found no natural explanations, and patients often refused to speak openly, afraid of ridicule or government attention. By the late 1990s, the Buga sphere had become a subject of heated debate among UFO researchers. Some argued it was an alien probe, carefully designed to test human reactions and monitor progress. Others insisted it was part of a hidden military program, a weapon or surveillance drone that civilians were never meant to see. But those who had stood face to face with it said both theories were wrong. They believed the object was something older, something that had been on Earth long before humans walked its surface. One chilling clue supported their belief. Deep in the archives of the Colombian military, investigators discovered references to similar metallic spheres recorded as far back as the 1800s. Farmers had described them in letters. Priests had written about floating eyes of metal that followed churchgoers at night. If those accounts were true, then the Buga sphere was not new at all. It had been here for centuries, silently watching generation after generation. That realization shifted the question. No longer was it simply, what are these spheres? The more terrifying question became, why have they been here for so long, and what are they waiting for? Whispers of prophecy spread among villagers. Some said the spheres were messengers, preparing humanity for contact. Others claimed they were warnings, guardians placed on Earth to monitor our violence and destruction. And then there were those who believed something far darker, that the spheres were marking the planet, step by step, before the arrival of whoever had sent them. By the turn of the century, the Buga sphere was no longer a mystery contained to one Colombian city. It was part of a global phenomenon, its sightings recorded on every continent. The truth seemed closer than ever, yet just out of reach, locked away in military vaults and whispered testimonies. And then, in the early 2000s, reports of the spheres began to change. They were no longer just watchers in the night sky. They were appearing in daylight. By the early 2000s, the Buga sphere was no longer a secret of quiet nights and frightened farmers. It began to appear in broad daylight, hovering over highways, gliding above rivers, even floating near schools. Unlike before, when only a handful of witnesses could swear to what they had seen, entire crowds now pointed upward together, frozen by fear and wonder, Children screamed, adults prayed, and cameras finally captured what words had failed to describe for decades. The footage was undeniable. Smooth metallic, seamless spheres hanging in the air with no wings, no engines, and no sound. They rotated slowly, as though scanning their surroundings, then darted away at impossible speeds. Scientists analyzed the videos, expecting to expose a trick, but the results left them speechless. There was no evidence of wires, no signs of digital manipulation, no logical explanation at all. What appeared on film was real. With this new wave of evidence, governments could no longer dismiss the phenomenon as mass hysteria. Yet, instead of admitting the truth, officials grew more secretive. Witnesses who tried to share their stories reported visits from men in dark suits warning them to stay silent. Farmers who offered proof claimed their equipment was confiscated without explanation. The more the public demanded answers, the deeper the silence from those in power became. But silence could not stop the fear. Reports multiplied across the globe. In Mexico, entire towns saw metallic spheres swarm across the skies like a flock of birds. In Japan, fishermen claimed the objects hovered just above the waves before diving into the ocean without leaving a splash. In Europe, pilots reported near collisions, their instruments failing as the strange probes drifted calmly across flight paths. Everywhere the pattern was the same: observation, disruption, and departure. The true terror came from what witnesses began to feel. Many described overwhelming emotions in the presence of the spheres: dread, awe, or an unnatural calm that made their thoughts slow. Psychologists suggested it was shock, the human mind reacting to something beyond comprehension. But some scientists whispered a more disturbing theory: the spheres were testing human consciousness itself, experimenting not just with our machines, but with our minds. In Buga, where it all began, people spoke of strange dreams that spread like an infection. Entire families described the same vision, standing in an endless plain of silver, with countless spheres hovering silently overhead. No sound, no sky, just the cold gaze of alien eyes. When they awoke, they felt marked, as if chosen for something they could not understand. Then came the event that changed everything. In 2009, a sphere was seen hovering above a crowded market in Buga for nearly 15 minutes. Unlike before, it did not flee when confronted. Hundreds of witnesses stood beneath it, recording with phones and cameras. For the first time, the object allowed itself to be seen fully, calmly, deliberately. Its surface reflected nothing, absorbing the sunlight, glowing with an unnatural energy. And then, without warning, it pulsed, a single wave of light that rippled across the crowd. Every electronic device in the area died instantly. Cars stalled, phones shut down, even pacemakers stopped. Panic erupted as people screamed and ran. By the time power returned minutes later, the sphere was gone. The event left the town shaken, but what disturbed researchers most was what followed. Many who had stood beneath the sphere that day began to show strange symptoms. Some complained of headaches that never faded. Others developed sudden sensitivity to light and sound. A few swore they could hear faint humming at night, like the echo of the sphere calling them. Doctors could not explain these conditions. Governments refused to acknowledge them. But in Buga, the people whispered a single belief: the sphere had left a mark. Now, decades after the first sightings, one truth is clear. The Buga sphere was never a myth. It was never just imagination or folklore. Scientists, soldiers, and civilians alike have seen it, measured it, and felt its power. And if it is a probe, then whoever sent it has been watching humanity for far longer than we ever realized. The question is no longer if the spheres are real. The question is what they want. And as sightings continue to grow, spreading across oceans and continents, humanity faces a chilling possibility: that the silent eyes in the sky are not simply observing us, they are waiting. The years after the Buga market incident did not bring peace. Instead, they brought escalation. Reports of spheres spread like wildfire. Once seen only in rural areas or quiet towns, they now appeared over sprawling cities. In Bogota, commuters on a crowded highway froze in shock as a massive metallic orb hovered silently above the traffic. In New York, office workers on the 30th floor of a skyscraper claimed they saw one drift past their windows, moving with deliberate calm before vanishing into the clouds. These appearances caused chaos. News networks broadcast shaky footage, social media flooded with videos, yet official voices remained silent. Governments around the world pretended nothing was happening.